Hello again. I think it's fair to say that the name of David Olusoga, the celebrity historian, is one familiar to most of us. This book, Black and British: A Forgotten History, is very popular and well known. Adam Rutherford, the geneticist, is author of this book, How to Argue with a Racist. This too was a bestseller and offers a pseudo-scientific approach to race and racism, unlike Olusoga's book, which is chatty and informal. Although perhaps a little less famous than David Olusoga, Rutherford and his book are widely known about. They are probably the best known writers on the subject of black history and anti-racism in this country. Of course, the two men actually hold diametrically opposed views on race, but I don't suppose for a moment that the average Guardian reader has even noticed this. Adam Rutherford holds the orthodox modern view that there is no such thing as race, and that any apparent differences between black people and white can be explained in terms of culture and upbringing. In other words, for him, race is a social construct. In How to Argue with a Racist, for instance, he explains the fact that black Africans are famously good runners in terms of its having become a big tradition in Kenya and Ethiopia. In other words, black Africans are no different in muscles and skeletons from white people, but running is more of a popular thing in East Africa than it is in Britain. By contrast, David Olusoga thinks that black people in Africa have different arms and legs from us. No, don't laugh. He actually says so in his book. Allow me to read a paragraph from page 30. He's talking about old skeletons of supposed Africans that have been found in this country. Key discoveries relate to some 200 human remains that were discovered in York in finds made by chance over the course of the 19th and 20th centuries. When the historian Peter Fryer wrote his book Staying Power in 1984, he noted that among the skeletons exhumed were several whose limb proportions suggested that they were black Africans. Well, there you have it. Black Africans have skeletons that are completely different from those of white people, a theme that Olusoga explores further when talking about other skeletons found in this country. The strange thing about the two men, though, whose names are always cropping up in Britain when black history or racism is being discussed, is the eerie similarities between them. So similar are the two men that it makes me wonder if their early childhoods might go some way towards explaining their later preoccupations and belief systems. David Olusoga's mother was white. She married a Nigerian, and for the first few years of his life, David Olusoga lived in Nigeria. Then his mother took him to England, and they lived in a completely white area in a northern English city, where he spent his childhood in the 1970s. At that time, there were no black people at all living in Gateshead. It was a lonely and disturbing time for a mixed-race child. The story was much the same with Adam Rutherford. His mother was white and his father was from Guyana, the same country that David Lammy's parents came from. He grew up in Ipswich in the 1970s, also a completely white place at that time. Both men therefore grew up as mixed-race children in white areas in the 1970s, which could not help but have a great effect upon them psychologically. Both also have citizenship of other countries besides Britain. For Olusoga, this is Nigeria, and in the case of Rutherford, he also has a New Zealand passport. I cannot think that it is a coincidence that the two most well-known writers in Britain on racism and black history should both have been the product of mixed marriages, both grown up as mixed-race children in white areas of Britain in the 1970s, and are both entitled to passports other than British ones. I think that the writing of these books on the subject of ethnicity and race might have been a kind of therapeutic activity, one which would have helped both men come to terms with their identity. This would explain why the subject of these books is so desperately important to both men. These are not objective works of non-fiction, but rather cries from the heart.